Hello. In this video I'm going to be demonstrating the installation of Ricochet's aluminum skid plates on a 2020 Ranger 1000. Now this video will also work for our UHMW set as well. It's pretty much the exact same installation procedure, so like I said, this video will suffice for both our half-inch UHMW set and our 3/16 aluminum set. The first thing you need to do to get ready to install your plates is to remove all of the factory plastic. That's already been taken care of on this machine. So once you have your factory plastic off, ready to go, you're ready to start your installation. Probably going to be easiest to start from the rear forward. Now to mount these skid plates, we're picking up all the factory mounts, and then we've also got some hardware, nut plates and clamps. For anywhere where you're going to be using the factory mounts, we're going to recommend putting a little bit of blue Loctite on those bolts. These threads, there's not a whole lot of thread there. They're kind of easy to strip out, so you don't want to over tighten them, but you don't want to have them loosen up on you so you develop a rattle down the road. So a little bit of blue Loctite on any of the bolts that are going to go into the factory threads. If you do strip a bolt out in the factory threads, the easiest way to fix that is going to be to get a 1/4-20 self-tapping bolt. That's a little bit larger than the 6mm bolts that these are threaded to. It'll cut a new thread, it'll bite in. So if you do strip one out, that's the easiest way to remedy that, is just to get a 1/4-20 self-tapping bolt. It'll fit through the cup washer, but it'll be a little bit bigger to cut a new thread. So like I say, if that does happen, if you over torque it, strip it out, 1/4-20 self-tapper is the easy fix. So like I say, blue Loctite on anything going into the frame. Any of the clamps or nut plates that we're providing with the larger 8mm hardware, these have an all-metal self-locking feature on them, and you want to use anti-seize on these. You don't want to put Loctite on any of these. They've already got the locking feature built into the nut, so you don't need to worry about anything loosening up. Like I say, it's got an all-metal locking feature built into this nut, but you're going to want to put a little bit of anti-seize on any of the larger 8mm bolts that are going to come with your nut plates or your clamps. So yeah, let's get going. So this plate's going to use, like I said, we're starting from the rear. Just the way these plates overlap, it's probably a little bit easier to do it that way. So we're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these two front bolts. Okay, so there's the two factory bolts. Once you have those started, you can kind of just let the plate hang. You don't want to tighten anything down just yet. We're actually going to install the full set and then go through and tighten everything. So once you get those in, then you can go and start putting the rest of the hardware in. You've got 4 of these nut plates and bolts, and like I said, you want to put anti-seize on these. Not going to do Loctite, but we're going to do anti-seize. You're going to run the bolt through. There's already a hole in the frame there, and then just start that nut plate on top. I'll do the same thing for the other side. And then that leaves us the 2 rear mounts Those are probably a little bit easier to get to from the very back side here. It's kind of tight. You got to drop your nut plate in. Then just line it up with the slot and get the thread started. Okay, so we've got all the bolts started for that rear plate. Like I said, we're going to leave everything loose. So now we can move on to the next plate. This plate, it's going to be the cup washers and bolts in the factory locations, and then we're going to have 2 clamps. The 2 clamps are going to go around the back on this section of the frame. On the passenger side, it's totally open, so you can get the plate into position and then come in and put the clamp on afterwards. On the driver's side, they've got this plastic here that's in the way. You're not going to be able to get that clamp in after you get the plate into position. So what you need to do is take this clamp, take a screwdriver, work it between this plastic and the frame, pry the plastic back a little bit just so you can get the clamp into position. Now the plastic's going to kind of hold that clamp up a little bit like that. That's okay for now. I'll show you how we're going to pull that down and get it all hooked up after we get the plate on. Okay, like I said, for all your bolts and cup washers, a little bit of blue Loctite. Okay, once you have a couple started, you can let the plate hang. You can see where we've got these slots. All these mounts are going to be a common mount for the next plate, so you don't want to put any of your bolts in here just yet. These are going to tie in with the next plate that we're going to install. So just do the 5 cup washers in the rear. Okay, so there's the 5 cup washers started, and like I say, we're just going to leave everything loose for now. And then for this clamp over here, you can use this access hole to line it up with the bolt hole. Get that into position, and then again, anything with the clamps or the nut plates, we're going to use anti-seize. Okay. And then, like I said, the other clamp, it's wide open in the back. You can just come over from the back side, hang it around the frame tube, line it up with a slot, and then get the bolt started. So that's all the hardware for this plate, minus the mounts up top. Like I said, they're going to be a common with our next plate. Now this plate has one clamp also. I usually like to hang this first before I get the plate on. We do have the access hole, but there's a brake line that runs on this frame rail right here, and you want to make sure you get this clamp underneath that brake line. You don't want to go over the top of the brake line because you're going to potentially damage the brake line doing that. So I'll just kind of get it in position roughly, but make sure it's under that brake line, and then you should be able to come through and line it up after we get the plate on. Blue Loctite on the cup washer threads. Doesn't take much, just a little dab. Now this plate, to get it into position, you get this little tab up front here. This is going to tuck under this little tab here like the factory plate did. Just like so. Start a couple of these cup washers. Then we can let the plate hang. Now at this point, while this plate's still kind of down, I'm going to try and get this clamp located to the hole. That way if it slides back, I can still access it. So right there, we're just going to work it on back. Get it lined up with the slot. Start that bolt. And again, you want anti-seize on that. And now we can just start the rest of the cup washers. The reason you want to leave everything loose is you're installing all the plates, you might have to adjust it. Now if we tighten this plate all the way down and then this plate needed to slide back, we'd be limited because that plate would already be tightened down. So that's the reason for leaving everything loose, is so you can, after we get all the plates on, all the hardware started, you can then go back and get everything adjusted to line up for the best fit. Okay, at this point we have all of our cup washers started. Main thing you want to do is just make sure that all the cup washers are going to seat down flush and flat. You can see right back here in the rear we've got one that's not, so all this needs to shift forward a little bit. There we go. So they're all looking pretty good except for that one, so I'm going to tighten this one down first. And again, you don't want to over torque these. These are really easy to strip out. As you can see, I'm just using a little 1/4 inch drive ratchet. Definitely do not use an air tool on those. Okay, so that takes care of all the cup washers. So now we can go through and tighten down the larger bolts for the clamps and the nut plates. With this, I'll usually try and get my finger in there just to make sure you don't rotate that clamp off the frame. Sometimes they can rotate on you. Usually they're pretty good, but once you start to getting it tight a little, it'll suck in and won't rotate anymore. So. Okay, and then for these two on the sides, you're going to have to grab the hex insert with a wrench to keep it from spinning. And it's going to be a 7/16 wrench to grab that hex insert. You see these ones back here, they're not captured in any way, so if you just go to turn the bolt, you're just going to turn the whole thing. Okay, and then that leaves us the very two rear ones. And these are captured, they can't spin. Okay, so that takes care of the belly skids. Now I have this top piece here. This is just going to secure via nuts and bolts and washers. You don't need to put it wouldn't hurt to put anti-seize. These are just a nylock nut, so they've got the locking feature in the nut, so you don't need any Loctite. A little anti-seize won't hurt. But not as necessary on these as it is anything with the that locking nut welded to the clamp or the nut plate. So we're just going to take this and get it into position. There's already holes in the frame, so just run the bolt with the washer through, put the second washer on top, and then followed by the nut. Okay, now that we have all those on, I'm just going to adjust the plate to the best fit, get it centered. Need a 13mm wrench, your T40 Torx bit, and just tighten it down. Okay, that takes care of the belly skid installation on this 2020 Ranger 1000. Like I said, the UHMW installation will pretty much be exactly the same. The overlaps are going to be the same. The hardware is going to be slightly different, but pretty much the exact same procedure to install it. I'm not going to demonstrate the front A-arm skids. We've actually got a video showing how our A-arm skids mount. Pretty much all of our A-arm skids mount the same way. On this machine, there's a plastic guard that's riveted to the A-arm. You need to drill those rivets out, remove that guard, get the plate in place, set your clamps in, adjust for your clearances. Like I say, we've got a video that explains how to do all of our A-arms. They're pretty much all the same. So since these are already on the machine, I'm not going to demonstrate them. The rear is pretty much the same deal. It's nuts and bolts that go through the A-arms here, and then it's a nut plate and bolts back there. So that's pretty straightforward. Like I say, don't over torque your cup washers. Those bolts can strip out pretty easy, so you don't want to do that. A little blue Loctite on all these. That'll keep them from loosening up and rattling. And then anti-seize on anything that we're giving you that's like on a clamp or a nut plate or anything like that. So this is, you've got full coverage front to rear. We didn't really do a floorboard for this plate. The side protection is just integrated right into the main belly skids. They come up right along the edge here, so that's pretty nice. So you got full coverage front to rear, and then your little lip ups on the side for your floorboards. And then, like I say, the UHMW installation is going to be pretty much identical to what we've just done here with the aluminum. So this is a pretty straightforward, easy set to install. Should serve you and your machine for many years to come. Keep your machine and your passengers safe from damage, trail carnage, things like that. That's never fun. So thanks for watching, guys.